Have you ever met a woman who drew you in without saying a word? She didn't try to impress, she simply was. And yet, something about her presence felt deeply right. Not loud, not polished, just real. It wasn't her beauty, though she had it. It wasn't her charm, though it was there. It was her feminine energy, calm, authentic, inner, quietly powerful. Hi, it's Vernon again. In today's video, I will reveal 7 feminine traits that make a lasting impression on a man, not by force or performance, but by quiet truth. These aren't tips or tricks. They're reflections of something deeper, the kind of energy that reaches past attraction and speaks to the heart. If what I share feels like something your heart has been waiting to hear, don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel. Not for me, but because reminders like these don't come often. And sometimes we only get one moment to remember who we really are. So, let's talk about the kind of feminine energy that doesn't just attract, it awakens. The kind that lingers in a man's memory long after the moment has passed. 1. Inner stillness. The quiet confidence of a woman who feels safe within herself. There is a rare kind of woman who doesn't chase attention. She holds it. Not with volume, not with sparkle, but with presence. Her calm doesn't come from knowing all the answers. It comes from no longer needing to prove that she does. Inner stillness is not silence. It's not withdrawal. It's the space within a woman that remains unshaken, even when life tries to stir her. It's what allows her to listen without reacting, to be seen without performing, and to love without losing herself. When a woman feels safe in her own soul, she doesn't need to fill every space with words. Her energy speaks for her. And what it says is, "I know who I am, even when you don't." That kind of energy draws a man in, not because it demands anything, but because it invites something deeper in him to rise and meet it. In a world full of performance, stillness is rebellion. In a culture obsessed with doing, a woman who simply is, fully, unapologetically, becomes unforgettable. Because she's not trying to become someone else. She's remembering who she already is. Psychologists have long studied the magnetic power of nonverbal communication, noting that calm, self-assured presence often inspires greater trust and emotional safety than words ever could. And for many men, especially those who are ready for depth, that safety is more seductive than any surface charm. Stillness doesn't mean she's reached the end of her journey. It means she's no longer afraid to be in the middle of it. She's stopped measuring herself by how fast she moves or how much she accomplishes. Instead, she's begun to value what most overlook: the quiet between decisions, the breath before the next chapter. Stillness is not about passivity, it's about conscious surrender. It's the wisdom to pause without fear and the strength to dwell in uncertainty without grasping for control. And in that sacred pause, life begins to reveal itself, not through action, but through awareness. And in that stillness, something sacred begins to happen. A man feels the freedom to slow down too, to breathe, to listen, to show up. Because when she no longer chases connection, connection comes. And that is where real attraction begins. Now, let's explore the second trait, one that adds color to this stillness and makes softness feel alive. 2. Warm playfulness. Have you ever caught yourself holding back a smile? Not because you didn't feel joy, but because you weren't sure it was allowed. Because somewhere along the way, play started to feel childish, undignified, maybe even dangerous. The kind of lightness that invites joy without forcing it. I remember one morning, years ago, my wife was making coffee, humming some old tune she probably didn't even know she was singing. The sun hadn't fully risen, and we were both still wrapped in that quiet morning slowness. Out of nowhere, she turned around, made the silliest face at me, and said something completely ridiculous. I don't remember what it was, but I remember the feeling. It was joy, unfiltered, unexpected, and deeply human. That moment reminded me of something I'd long forgotten. Relationships don't just need peace, they need play. You see, true playfulness isn't about being loud or funny or trying to entertain. It's a feminine trait that springs from emotional safety. It says, I trust you enough to be unguarded with you. It's the freedom to tease gently, to spark a smile, to bring life back into moments that have gone gray. Playfulness isn't the opposite of seriousness. It's what softens it. It's what makes space for both laughter and intimacy to coexist. A woman who can bring warmth to even the mundane, who can turn a morning coffee into a memory, holds a kind of magic that doesn't fade. And the truth is, many men crave this far more than they admit. Not because they want to be entertained, but because they want to feel emotionally safe enough to soften too. Playfulness becomes a doorway to vulnerability, and that's where real intimacy lives. If you've ever felt like your relationship has grown heavy, or like connection has settled into the gray rhythms of responsibility, you're not alone. Many couples lose the thread of joy not because they fall out of love, but because they forget to make space for lightness in the middle of it. Over time, life becomes about logistics, meals, bills, plans, obligations, and somewhere in the middle of all that duty, delight becomes an afterthought. But here's a truth worth sitting with. Play is not a luxury. It's a lifeline. It reminds us that love was never meant to be endured. It was meant to be experienced. And playfulness, at its core, is not about acting younger or being silly. It's about the courage to stay open, to let surprise in, to allow your partner and yourself to be human again. When a woman chooses to reawaken that part of herself, even gently, it doesn't just shift the mood. It transforms the emotional temperature of the entire relationship because it signals something deeper. I'm still here. and so is the part of me that once fell in love. So I'll ask you, not as a coach, but as a fellow traveler in this strange, beautiful thing we call partnership, what has joy looked like for you lately? And if the answer feels distant, what would it take to bring even a spark of it back? Feel free to share something small, a moment, a gesture, even just a memory. Not for me, but because someone else reading might need to remember too. I'd love to know, when was the last time you surprised someone with your lightness? Share a moment in the comments, even if it seems small. It might just remind someone else of what's been sleeping inside them too. Stillness may be the ground love grows in, but playfulness, that's the sunlight. But even sunlight, if not balanced, can scorch. So next, let's look at the trait that keeps all of this, softness, joy, connection, from losing its shape. 3. Grounded boundaries. Some qualities in a woman don't shimmer at first glance. They don't dance for attention. Instead, they stand, quietly, firmly, like the roots of an old tree. Grounded boundaries are like that. Not a wall, not a test, but a gentle clarity that says, this is me, this is what I allow, this is what I won't. It's tempting to think love means saying yes. Yes to forgiveness. Yes to compromise. Yes to giving more than you receive. But there's a sacred kind of no that protects the yes. A woman who knows her boundaries is not hard, she's trustworthy. Because when she says yes, you know it's real. It comes from freedom, not fear. Men, the ones worth keeping, aren't looking for someone who disappears into their needs. They're drawn to someone who honors her own. A woman who doesn't make herself smaller just to keep the peace, who doesn't abandon her truth to avoid discomfort. She knows that love without self-respect isn't intimacy, it's erosion. This kind of boundary doesn't push people away. It invites the right ones to come closer with care. It teaches others how to treat her, not through demand, but through example. And for the woman herself, boundaries are how she stays intact, how she loves without leaking, how she gives without going empty. We often think of boundaries as rigid, but the most powerful ones breathe. They bend when needed, but never break who you are. They allow her to stay connected without getting consumed. Boundaries don't need to be loud to be strong. They just need to be rooted in self-respect. Now, if boundaries are what keep love honest, the next trait is what helps it stay alive, especially in the quiet moments where nothing is said but everything is felt. 4. Attuned presence. There's a kind of power that doesn't come from words, effort, or expression, but from the simple act of truly being there, fully, quietly, undivided. In a world where so many people are merely waiting for their turn to speak, true presence is a gift, and a rare one. A woman with attuned presence isn't just physically there. She's emotionally available, energetically engaged. She listens not only with her ears, but with her eyes, her posture, her stillness. When a woman offers this kind of presence, she creates a sacred space, one where a man can step out of performance and into truth. And it's in that space that connection deepens. Because at the core of every man, even those who seem self-assured, is the question, can I be seen here and not be judged? This isn't about perfect communication. It's not about agreeing on everything. It's about showing up fully, without distraction, without pretense, without trying to control the outcome. Presence says, you matter, and right now, I'm with you. And presence doesn't always look like conversation. Sometimes it's the silence between two people that does the most healing. A shared gaze, a held pause, a moment where nothing needs to be fixed, only felt. Many women underestimate the impact of this trait because it's not performative, it's not flashy. But ask any man who's grown tired of surface-level interaction, and he'll tell you presence is unforgettable. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to carry the emotional weight of the relationship. You just need to show up, really show up. And in doing so, you invite him to do the same. Because in a distracted world, attention is intimacy. And when presence becomes the foundation, even the smallest moments begin to feel meaningful. But presence, as powerful as it is only part of the equation. Because sometimes being fully present also means being able to hold space for another's chaos without losing your center. And that leads us to the next trait. 5. Emotional steadiness. We often imagine emotional strength as control, the ability to keep it together, to not react, to rise above. But true steadiness isn't about suppression. It's about grounding. It's the quiet grace of staying rooted, even when someone else is unraveling in front of you. A woman with emotional steadiness doesn't shrink from emotion, hers or anyone else's. She can witness a partner's frustration without making it about herself. She can feel discomfort and not flee from it. She knows how to hold tension without needing to fix, rescue, or absorb it. This isn't coldness, it's warmth with boundaries. It's presence with clarity. And in relationships, it's magnetic. Because emotional steadiness says, you don't need to be perfect with me, just real. If this resonates with you, take a moment and save this video. You may want to come back to this part the next time emotions run high, not just in your relationship, but in your own inner world. Many men aren't seeking someone to fix their problems. What they're truly longing for is someone who won't vanish when things get messy. Someone who can sit with the storm and still hold a steady flame. This trait isn't about being unaffected, it's about not being consumed. And that subtle difference changes everything. Because when you can meet chaos with calm, you become a source of peace in a world that desperately needs it. But emotional steadiness alone isn't enough. Holding space is one thing, but allowing someone into yours fully and fearlessly is another. And that's where we'll go next. 6. Openness to receive. This point reminds me, Sarah, my old colleague. She's a kind, attentive, the first to bring soup when someone was ill, the last to ever ask for help herself. She poured out so much care that people began to depend on it, almost unconsciously. But when she was offered praise or support, she'd deflect with a joke or change the subject, as if letting love in made her vulnerable in a way that giving never did, as if receiving meant she owed something back. And I've seen versions of her everywhere, in old friends, in clients, even in moments with my own daughter. Brilliant, generous women who've mastered the art of giving, but still flinch when love is pointed back at them. Openness to receive isn't just about accepting help or compliments. It's about allowing yourself to be seen and letting that be enough. It's allowing love to land, letting praise reach you without deflection, letting support stay without guilt. Somewhere along the way, many women are taught that giving is what makes them valuable, that to be nurturing is to be selfless. But a woman who receives with grace shows something else entirely. She shows that her heart is worthy of being held, not just used. This trait, in truth, is less about action and more about permission. The permission to stop over-explaining your needs, to stop earning affection, to trust that your presence alone is enough to be cherished. A man, especially one who is emotionally mature, doesn't just want to give, he needs to. Not because you are weak, but because love is not complete unless it flows both ways. When a woman opens herself to receive, something shifts. The relationship moves from performance to partnership, from transaction to trust. And in that moment, she teaches a man that intimacy isn't about proving, it's about allowing. If you find yourself always giving but rarely letting anything return to you, just pause. Notice what you deflect. Notice what you downplay. You don't have to change it all today, but maybe, just maybe, allow one kind word to truly sink in. Because receiving is not weakness, it's trust in motion.
7. Embodied worth. There's a presence some women carry that can't be taught in words. It isn't loud, it doesn't seek validation, and it never asks for permission to exist. It's the kind of worth that's lived in the body, not broadcasted, not performed, but known. Embodied worth is not about self-esteem as an idea. It's the way a woman sits, speaks, walks into a room. It's how she holds eye contact without shrinking, how she says no without apology, how she receives love without flinching. This kind of worth isn't conditional. It doesn't rise and fall with attention. It doesn't wait for approval. It's the quiet result of 1,000 inner choices, to value herself even when others didn't, to stay when it was easier to abandon, to soften without collapsing. When a woman lives from embodied worth, everything shifts. She doesn't need to prove herself, because her presence does the speaking. She doesn't fear being too much or not enough, because she stopped measuring herself by someone else's ruler. And what's more, this kind of worth doesn't compete, it uplifts. It's the kind that inspires reverence, not reaction, because it signals something rare: wholeness. Wholeness doesn't mean perfect, it means undivided. It means she's no longer living in fragments, or waiting for someone else to fill in her blanks. A man can sense this even if he can't name it. It changes the way he shows up, because when a woman carries herself like she is already worthy, it invites him to rise with her, not to fix her, chase her, or complete her. So if you've spent years questioning your value, dimming your light, or negotiating your worth, let this be a gentle reminder. Your enoughness is not up for debate. It never was.
What we've explored together isn't just a list of traits. It's a map, not to please or attract, but to return. To remember the parts of you that have always been there, waiting. Feminine energy isn't about fitting into a mold. It's about letting yourself spill out of one. These 7 traits, stillness, playfulness, boundaries, presence, steadiness, receptivity, and worth, aren't strategies. They're invitations. Invitations to live with more softness, more strength, more truth. In the words of Carl Jung, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That journey isn't linear, and it's rarely loud. It's quiet, subtle, courageous. It asks you to hold complexity, to be both soft and strong, tender and clear, open and rooted. And perhaps that's the greatest beauty of feminine power. It doesn't conquer, it transforms. It doesn't ask for permission, it creates space. And in that space, the right kind of love, the kind that sees, honors, and expands you, has room to arrive. So if this reflection stirred something in you, let it sit. Let it work on you in silence. And when you're ready, feel free to share your thoughts below. And if you found value here, like this video and subscribe to my channel. Not for the numbers, but because it helps this kind of quiet wisdom find its way to someone else who might need it. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for remembering. And if your heart whispered yes more than once today, subscribe, because sometimes all we need is to be reminded, just once more, of who we already are. I'm Vernon. Thanks for watching my video.